All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining today. I'm really excited to meet some of you. I wish that we had more of an opportunity to chat, but hopefully in the next few weeks, as we're getting the program going, I'll be able to get to know some of you much better. So I'm going to share my screen because I have a presentation. Um, And since I'm going to be presenting, I do ask if you do have something to share. I encourage conversation and dialogue during this presentation, even though it is a presentation. I really appreciate hearing from other folks. So feel free at any point to just come off mute or put something in the chat, but it may be a little bit difficult for me to see the chat given that I'm going to be presenting. So I wanted to first introduce myself. My name is Patricia Ferrero. I use she, her, ella, they, them, ella pronouns. And I'm the Leadership Development Manager at Conservation Colorado. I've been with Conservation Colorado, initially with the Protégete program since 2015. So it's been about 10 years, close to 10 years since I joined the team. And I first started as an organizer for our Protégete program. And as I was working in this program, I realized that the thing that I was most passionate about was ensuring that we were providing equitable access so that everyone is able to engage in the spaces that we as Conservation Colorado are constantly navigating. So as a political organization that really focuses on policy solutions to environmental issues, this can be a very exclusionary space, especially for folks who are not part of the dominant identity. And as someone who has immigrant parents, I've always thought about how can I make this work that I care about so much really accessible for people like my parents who have a lot of ideas, are really smart, are connected to their communities, but are often not welcomed into decision-making spaces. So that's part of my motivation for doing the work that we do. And in the past few years, we've decided to expand on this leadership development portion in creating the leadership development, the Climate Justice Leadership Academy. Here in this picture is also my colleague, Xochitl. She is not with us here today, but she is also available to discuss all of the programmatic work that we offer. And so if you have any questions following this presentation, you can feel free to reach out to either of us. Our contact information is located on this page. And I also, before I do all of this, I also wanted to really quickly share the presentation with everyone because we do have the slides in both English and Spanish, but because there's quite a bit of content, we have separated them into English slides and Spanish slides. And so if you want to follow along and open the slides in Spanish, please do feel free to do so. I'm putting the slides in the chat right now. Let me know if you're unable to access them, but I believe I made it open to anyone with the link. All right. So going back to our slideshow, I do have a few acuerdos or agreements for us to look at. I ask for everyone to please feel free, as I mentioned before, to interrupt me if you have any questions, if you have any stories that you want to share. Also, if you have feedback, or if you want to comment on any of the pieces that we're discussing. I ask that everyone please try to lead with curiosity. So assume best intentions, but ask for clarity if there's something that doesn't sit right with you, and please do hold us accountable. Be kind in the discussion. We know that this is very emotional work for a lot of people. Politics are really emotional, and so we want to remain kind in the chat. We want to remain kind in the conversation. I'm a firm believer that everyone is an expert in their lived experiences, and so I ask that if you do have a relevant story to share, please do. That only makes the conversation richer. And lastly, everyone here is at choice. And so if at any point you feel like you need to step away, if you need to take care of yourself, you are at choice. Feel free to do what you need to. So we do have a few desired outcomes from this conversation. The first one being to introduce folks to the Climate Justice Leadership Academy, if you are unfamiliar with it. provide a comprehensive overview of the Boards and Commissions Fellowship, which is a fellowship that we currently have open and are taking applications for. And then also ensure that all participants in this call know if they're a good candidate for the fellowship and how they can get involved should they choose to remain involved in this work. So as I was mentioning before, I started off with the Protégete program, but 3 years ago, we decided to dedicate additional resources to the leadership development of our community members. And this is because as an organization, we have historically done a lot of policy work at the state legislature and in regulatory spaces. And then we also do elections work. And for this work, we do incorporate community voices and try to ensure that activists have a way of engaging with us. However, asking a community activist to go from being an advocate for different issues to running for office, which is the next step in our leadership journey, is pretty inequitable if we're not providing a pathway. And so with our Climate Justice Leadership Academy, we're trying to demystify decision-making spaces, ensuring that community members are able to engage in a safe way and that they are finding the level of leadership that really aligns with what they see for themselves. And so this kind of goes into our values as the Climate Justice Leadership Academy. We firmly believe in ecosystems of leadership, that there isn't one way to be a leader, but we want to provide opportunities and a menu of options for folks to engage. We want there to be reciprocity, so an understanding that this is not just intended to be a benefit to us as an organization, but that it's mutually beneficial to each other, to our community, that we are benefiting from work that is going to be beneficial for everyone in Colorado, as well as our environment. We want to lead with love. So we don't want to bring hateful rhetoric or fear into the work that we do, even though we understand that there's a lot to be afraid of. We do want to focus on our leadership coming from a place of love and passion and the beauty of the Colorado that we live in. We find that there's a lot of strength in stories, and so the lived experience of our community leaders is very valuable in helping us come up with policy solutions. We believe that environmental work is intersectional work, and that we need additional ways for folks to engage with our work, depending what their background is. And so we firmly do believe that environmental justice is also immigration justice, is racial justice, it's social justice. We also believe in setting safe boundaries and expectations. And so we don't want you to ever feel that there's not clarity in the type of work that we're trying to accomplish or how you can engage with us. We want to honor our ancestors and our culture, regardless of what your background may be. We do want to understand that we are that our leadership is coming from us being on the shoulders of our previous generations and that future generations will be on our shoulders as well. So this is continuous work that is being bolstered by our the legacy of our communities. And then we also want to cultivate joy and community care, knowing that we can't do any of this work if we're not also bringing in celebration, if we're not taking care of each other. So jumping into the Boards and Commissions Fellowship, the purpose of the fellowship is pretty simple. It's really to support community leaders, especially those from disproportionately impacted communities, in getting appointed to boards and commission seats. We don't work exclusively with disproportionately impacted communities. However, we do know that the people who are living in communities that are impacted by environmental injustice, who are at the front lines of public land work, of air quality work, are oftentimes the people who have the most knowledge to share from their own personal lived experience. That being said, we warmly welcome our allies as well into this work, regardless of what your background may be. We want to make sure that there's a space for you and that if you align with our values, that you are also being uplifted in your leadership journey. And so why do we focus on boards and commissions? That's pretty simple for Conservation Colorado. We focus on people, policy, and politics, and this is pretty much in the middle of all of that. We want to make sure that in doing this leadership development work, specifically in boards and commissions, that we're providing opportunities for our leaders to be lifelong activists with us. And that only comes with having a sense of ownership of the work and of feeling that you belong to the broader ecosystem that's making a change in our communities. In terms of policy, regardless of what board or commission you choose to sit on, you being able to advocate for environmental policy is pushing our priorities forward. And so we also see this as being a benefit to our policy work. And in terms of politics, this is a stepping stone for people to then run for office in the future. This is a great opportunity to investigate what does sitting in these leadership development spaces look like? How does it feel? Whether or not this is a good fit for you. And since most of the boards and commissions that we're going to be focusing on are appointed, or all of them are appointed, they're usually pretty easy to get onto. Oftentimes, by applying, you already are pretty it's pretty easy for you to get accepted into the board and commission. That depends on which one you're looking at. There are some that are a lot more competitive than others, but being assigned to a board or commission is relatively easy compared to elections work. And so being able to practice some of the leadership skills that you may need in elected office in these appointed positions is really useful. And so here are some of the goals that we have for the Boards and Commissions Fellowship. We're looking this year to accept about 20 fellows, and we would like to have about 30 mentors join our mentorship roster. We are also looking for about 50% of the fellows who are in our fellowship to apply for a board or commission before the end of the fellowship. So we really are looking for people who are very committed to being placed on a board or commission. Our goal is also to create pathways to leadership, as we discussed before. And then lastly, we are hoping to cultivate a network of leaders at different levels of decision making who can work collaboratively to address the bigger environmental issues that Colorado is facing. And so these are the roles that we are looking for. We have 3 roles that you may be interested in, and so we'll go over what each of these are. We're looking for fellows, and so this is for fellows who are interested in being part of the fellowship, there is an application. There's no guarantee based on you filling out the application if you will be accepted or not. There is a pretty rigorous process that we follow in order to ensure that fellows are that they're at a leadership space where they will be successful in this program. And what we're looking for in our fellows is that you can dedicate about 20 hours a month to the fellowship. It is a steep request that we have. I know that 20 hours a month is quite a lot of time. And so for that reason, we do try to be very transparent that this is a huge time commitment. We prioritize applicants who have taken action with Conservation Colorado in the past, are members of disproportionately impacted communities, hold non-dominant identities, or are strong allies for social justice. That does not mean that if you don't fit into any of these categories that you will not be accepted, but those are some of the priorities that we do have in terms of selecting our fellows. Since this is a pretty big commitment that we're asking of fellows, we also do provide a $1,000 stipend for anyone who completes the program. It is definitely not a large amount of money, especially considering what a big time commitment this is. However, it is a way for us to honor the commitment, the capacity that you're dedicating towards this program. As well as for any of the in-person meetings that we have, especially for folks who are coming from out of town, we do provide transportation stipends and we do provide hotel stays. For any of the things that we do in person, food will also be provided, as well as all activities will be covered by Conservation Colorado. For mentors, we're looking for leaders that are already serving on or have served on a board or commission before. or an equivalent office. So if you have ever been on an elected city council, if you've ever been in the legislature, those are also valid positions that we would be more than happy to accept mentors who have that background. But the most relevant background would be for folks who have served on a board or commission before, especially appointed boards and commissions. We also are looking for folks who have non-dominant identities to be mentors, because we do know that for a lot of our fellows, having folks who have similar backgrounds who are able to represent their lived experience is very important. That being said, some of our best mentors have also been folks who have dominant identities, who have not had very many barriers to engaging in these spaces, and so they can provide some insider information that is really helpful for our fellows as well. So once again, we do not turn people away based on their identities. And for mentors, mentors do not need to apply to be mentors. They simply register. We do have a registration form, and it is pretty lengthy, but it's valuable information that helps our fellows better find a mentor that aligns with what they're looking for. And lastly, what we're looking for as well is presenters. So most of our trainings, or a lot of our trainings, are done by expert facilitators who have a lot of experience in the topics that we're going to be discussing. And for that reason, we do invite folks who have a lot of experience in different issue areas to come and provide presentations to our fellows. I would have to see what that looks like. But if you are someone who has a lot of information on a specific topic that would be relevant for our fellows, and can provide that information in an interactive or fun way, I welcome you to reach out to me so that we can discuss what being a presenter for the fellowship may look like. We do have a slate of really amazing presenters that we've worked with in the past, and we're always looking for new content that we might be able to incorporate into the fellowship. And all presenters are paid. There is an honorarium. So this is a brief overview of some of the topics that are covered in the fellowship. We do go over topics of self-care and community care. So this includes such things as confidence boosting exercises. It might be things like meditation, journaling, going out for walks in nature, ways in which you can take care of your mental health, as well as taking care of your community. So we go over mutual aid, restorative justice, topics that are going to support the well-being of our community and not just focus on the individual. We also talk about building networks and what building a network looks like, what the intention is, and how we can be a supportive and active and reciprocal member of a network. And then we also cover such topics as grieving as a public figure, what it looks like to engage in a public space as a person who also has your own feelings, maybe going through grief based on some of the political decisions that are being made, some of the broader issues happening worldwide, and how you can bring those discussions to public forums in an empathetic and appropriate way. We discuss power analysis and justice. So we'll talk about our own personal identities and how that influences the way that we navigate the world, what environmental justice is, and then we also cover power mapping. So having an understanding of the different power dynamics in a community, who has influence on the issues that you care about, and how you might be able to use this information to better analyze a strategic path moving forward to get certain issues passed in your decision-making body. We discuss communication strategies, so how to have a social media presence as a public figure, engaging with the media, establishing equitable relationships with your community as well as with other decision makers, and then how you can create messaging that is rooted in justice and empathy. We talk about working within the system. A big part of the Boards and Commissions Fellowship is knowing how to navigate a system that is historically pretty exclusionary and difficult for a lot of people to engage with. So in these discussions, we look at how the system is built out and what tools and tactics are important for us to know in order to be able to navigate these spaces. So part of what we look at is the political structure. We discuss parliamentary procedure, open meeting laws, how you manage a budget, a lot of these pieces that are going to be important as a person who is on a border commission. We talk about honoring your lived experience, so knowing your story of self and how your unique perspective that is based on your lived experience, on what your community looks like, is actually an asset in making decisions in these different bodies. And then lastly, we talk about conservation in nature, so reciprocity with nature. We will be having sessions on our different issue areas, including public lands, water, climate change, energy justice, air quality. We do discuss all of these different topics in our trainings as well, and how we as individuals and communities can connect with our nature and with each other. So this is not a comprehensive list because we do have a lot of sessions, as you can imagine. And so as such, we do cover a lot of different topics. And so this is a bit of an overview of the structure of the program. We do have 3 in-person meetings. All fellows are expected to engage in all of these meetings. The first one will be in September, the second one in February, and the third one in April. Because our biggest network is located in the Denver metro area, these sessions have usually been held in the Denver metro area. And as I mentioned before, if you are coming from out of town, we do provide support with transportation and hotel if you're coming in. We also have 8 hours of Zoom trainings per month. They're held on the second and third Saturday of every month from October until March. And so it's 4 hours every one of those days, and so it's usually been from 9 AM until 1 PM. We do try to provide quite a few breaks, and there is a lunch stipend for each of the Zoom meetings that you participate in. So we try to make it as equitable as possible, keeping in mind that we do have we don't have as much funding as we would like in order to make this fully equitable for all participants. However, if there are any barriers that are preventing you from engaging with the program, we do ask that you please let us know, and that way we can be as proactive as possible to try to meet your needs. There are homework assignments between each session, and this is what might take the bulk of the time. So it may be about 10 hours worth of homework per month, depending on the research that is being asked for you to do. Part of the homeworks that we provide, for example, in the beginning, are doing research on the different boards and commissions at both the state, county, and city level that you might be interested in engaging with. And depending on where you're located, some of this information can actually be pretty difficult to find. And so we do ask that you be very diligent in doing your research. Later on in the fellowship, we then do ask that you engage with some of these spaces. So engage in attend some of the sessions that they might be hosting. And if you can, also setting up a meeting with someone who is on a border commission. So there's a lot of diversity in the asks that are in the homework assignments. Some of it is very easy to do. It might be some readings or some videos. And then there is some stuff that you need to engage with other people in order to be able to finalize that assignment. You also, as a fellow, would need to host 1 hour a month with your mentor. We do provide some discussion topics for you to engage with your mentor, and so it doesn't have to be something that that you're coming up with unless that's what you want. These mentor meetings are one-on-one, and it is a completely unique relationship. So nobody else is going to have the same mentor as you. And as such, those meetings are completely yours. At no point do I get involved in those meetings unless I'm invited to, which means that if you want to use that time to talk about a different topic and not the topic that is provided for the homework assignment, that is completely fine. It is your meeting. You also will have 1 meeting a month with another fellow. This is an opportunity for you to connect with them, form a relationship, expand your network through your relationship with the other fellow. And there will also be some some discussion items provided so that you can also have a fruitful conversation with your fellow. For for this coming session, we also will have an optional opportunity for coaching. And so this is with a coach that is working with us. She will be available for all of the fellows, and she will have a few different topics that she's there to support with coaching. And if you're interested in having that additional layer of support, the coach is there available for you as well. And lastly, you will also be connected with a campaign manager and organizer from Conservation Colorado, based on the issue area that interests you the most. And so if you are someone who is very interested in water issues, you are exploring perhaps sitting on a water board, you will be connected with our campaign manager that specializes on water issues. And that way they can also be helpful in identifying a board or commission that may align with your needs, with what you're passionate about, and with your skill set. And they will also provide you with additional opportunities for engagement. Those are completely optional, but it is a way for you to continue to practice your leadership by engaging in some of Conservation Colorado's priority issues in the issue area that you care about. For all of these expectations, this is for fellows. Mentors are not expected or required to attend the trainings, the Zoom trainings. They are welcome to come and encouraged to come to the in-person meetings. And they will be receiving communication from me that's going to let them know what topics we're covering so that they're able to come prepared for the meetings that they have with their fellow every month. All right, so here is a timeline of what the fellowship looks like. Applications are currently open. It is July right now, and they will close on the last day of July. In August, we will be reviewing all applications and setting up interviews with folks who are moving on to the next phase of the fellowship process. So in the beginning of August, you will be informed, regardless of if you're chosen or not, you will be informed of the next steps. And if you are selected to be in an interview, you will have to schedule that interview with us. We will finalize with our interviews at the end of August, and our hope is that the first week of September, we are able to inform all accepted applicants that they have been chosen to be part of this upcoming cohort. There is an acceptance form that applicants need to fill out, and so they will have a week to complete that. In the meantime, on September 4th is when we will have our mentor onboarding. And so up until September 4th, we will be recruiting mentors as well. After September 4th, that's when we're planning on shutting down our recruitment for mentors. On September 20th and 21st, we'll have our kickoff. This is our kickoff retreat for the fellows. And so we will engage in a 2 days of activities, which will include community building. We'll do an environmental justice tour of Denver. We will have an opportunity to also do some to review networking. Everyone will receive a this little cards so that then you can do networking with your cards. And then on September 21st, we will have a networking event. So we will invite all of the mentors to participate in that. The fellows obviously will be invited to that as well. We'll have grass tops, Conservation Colorado staff, partner organizations, all are welcome to come and join at the networking event that will be on September 21st. From October until March, we will host our trainings. And on February 21st is when we will have our second in-person meeting, which will be our mock hearing. The mock hearing is intended to be an opportunity for the group to practice everything that we will be learning up until that point. So we will go to most likely the Golden City Council. That is where we did it last year. And so we'll have an opportunity to demystify a decision-making space by being in that space, sitting at the front of the room, being the decision makers, and going through the process of starting a meeting, doing roll call, establishing a quorum, introducing an issue, inviting community members to testify on that issue, and then taking a vote. The City Council building will be closed to the public, and so it will only be the Boards and Commissions Fellowship and friends that are going to be there. But we will be practicing both being the decision maker as well as being a community member who is testifying on an issue. And for our in-person mock hearing, we are also inviting mentors, staff members, and some other friends to be community members at that event. And then finally, our last thing is going to be our graduation, which is going to include a closing ceremony, as well as another networking event. And that is set to be on April 11th. And so all of our in-person meetings are currently already scheduled and on our calendars. But if, as we're planning, there are major conflicts for folks, we can revisit, perhaps making a small change if there's something that I'm unaware of that would be a big limitation for folks. So I want to make this as accessible as possible, but we do have those dates already kind of figured out for those. All right, so really briefly, I want to go over some of the profiles of folks that we're looking for. So for the fellows, we do not ask for very much previous knowledge. You don't have to already know how to do this stuff or know which board or commission you want to be on. That is part of what we will be covering. But there does need to be a strong desire to apply for a board or commission before the fellowship is over. So if you're coming into this uncertain of whether or not you want to apply, I would reconsider just because this is a lot of work that we're asking of folks. But if you are very committed to taking this next step in your leadership journey, we welcome everyone to apply. It is helpful if you do have some previous activism experience. It is not necessary. But for folks who are less familiar with the political structure, have never taken an action before, this may feel a little bit daunting. It may feel a little out of your comfort zone. And so if you are looking for your next step in your leadership journey and maybe are looking more to get involved in a campaign, we do have trainings for that as well. And that may be a better first step for you. But if you're really dedicated to the idea of being on a board or commission, we welcome you regardless of your previous experience. We also are very much looking for folks who are committed to environmental justice and want to be a voice for their community. Our priority is going to be in identifying folks who come from disproportionately impacted communities, but we also welcome allies as well. And so you do not need to be someone who has experienced environmental injustice personally, but that is part of the intention of the fellowship is to support people in getting into people with non-dominant identities and getting into these spaces. We're also looking for folks who can dedicate the 20 hours a month to this fellowship, as well as folks who are values aligned. And then we have our mentor profile. So who we're looking for mentors is folks who have served on a board, commission, or similar decision-making body in the past, are willing to dedicate between 2 to 5 hours a month to the fellowship, and that's going to be a minimum of 1 hour per month to meeting with your fellow. The rest of the time is going to be in communicating with me, doing some research, and ensuring that you're able to provide your fellow with the resources that they need to succeed. We do have a high interest in leaders who come from disproportionately impacted communities as well for the mentor profile, because we know that this is also going to be good representation for our fellows, but that is also not necessary. And then we are looking for folks who are dedicated to building the confidence of their fellow, serving as a guide, who are dedicated to expanding the network of their fellow, supporting their fellow in getting appointed, and who have shared values as well. Okay, so on this slide, you can see that there is a QR code for the fellowship application, as well as the mentor registration. And so I will also put the links to both of these forms in the chat in just a minute, but I wanted to make sure that folks have access to these forms in case they are looking for them and they are ready to take the next step. And speaking of the next step, I do want to, before we finish the presentation portion of this, I wanted to provide you guys a little bit of guidance as to what next steps will look like. So we are here at the info session today. If you feel like you are ready to get involved in the fellowship, we do have our two options right here, which are you can apply to be a fellow by the end of the month, in which case, if you do decide to apply to be a fellow, all applicants get notified about interviews the first week of August. So regardless of whether you're chosen, you do get a notification. And so we might let you know that you have not been chosen to move forward, but we will connect you with an organizer that is working in your area. And we will also keep you in mind for next year when we open up the applications once more. And then fellows are selected and notified the first week of September about whether or not they have been chosen to be part of the fellowship. The other option that we have here is to register to be a mentor by the end of August. We do have the mentor onboarding that is happening September 4th. Our hope is that before that, we do have all of our mentors already registered and committed to being part of this process. Because we are also looking for more mentors than fellows, because we want to make sure that fellows can choose a mentor that best aligns with what they're looking for, not all mentors will be chosen. That's not a bad thing. We have had some really amazing mentors that were chosen the first year and not chosen the second year, and vice versa. And it's not because they weren't amazing leaders, it's because the profile of the fellows that we had didn't really align with the mentors that they were. So fellows will be choosing based on identity mapping. So sometimes they might choose because they have a similar background. Sometimes they might choose because they are on a border commission that they're interested in applying for. It might be because they have similar work experience. So the first year of the fellowship, I was going to pair a fellow with a different mentor. And when he chose the one that he did, it's because they both worked in finance. That was a connection I would never have looked at. And so that's part of the reason that I don't make the choices. I let our fellows be the ones who choose because they know what they care about. And if you do register to be a mentor, we will be hosting our onboarding August 4th. For those of you who are maybe unsure if you want to be in the fellowship, we do have a couple of options here as well. One of them is that you can either meet with me or my colleague Sochi to learn more about our other leadership development programs. So we can talk about what the Climate Leaders Academy is, which is intended to support community leaders in getting involved in campaigns and starting their own local campaigns. We also have a Next Generation Climate Leaders program for high school and college students who want to get involved in advocacy and have never had an opportunity to do so. And then the other option that we have is to meet with one of our organizers so that you can volunteer with us. Our organizers are incredible. They are working across the state. And so based on your location, I would pair you up with an organizer, or you can also find them on our website. And they can connect you with opportunities to engage with our uh, with our priorities. So right now, next month we will be, or next in the next couple of months, we're going to be engaging in elections work, and so that might be an opportunity that one of our organizers can help you connect with, or during the legislative session with some of our policy campaigns. Okay. And that is the presentation that I had ready, prepared for y'all. This is my contact information, and I shared the slides with everyone in the chat. And so if you want to access me at any point, if you want to set up a meeting, my Calendly is available here on this slide, and you can feel free to set up a conversation with me at any point. And if you would rather meet with me in person, I'm also very happy to have a coffee or go out for lunch with anyone and talk more about leadership opportunities or how you can engage with Conservation Colorado, especially around the Boards and Commissions Fellowship, since that is the program we currently have openings for, and it's also one of my favorite things that we do. Are there any questions? I'll stop sharing. And I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to maybe let me know if you have any questions. Oh, I see in the chat there is a question of how old do you have to be in the fellowship or to be a fellow? There is no age restriction for how old someone has to be. However, I think for a lot of boards and commissions, you would need to be at least over 18 to participate in them. I could check to make sure there isn't additional age restrictions for boards and commissions. But I would say that at the very least, we do look for folks to be 18 and over. Um, However, for anyone who is younger than that, as I mentioned before, we do have our Next Generation Climate Leaders program that is designed for high school and college students. And so if you are younger than that, I would be more than happy to discuss potentially doing a Next Generation Climate Leaders program at your school or with some of your friends. Eric, I see that you also had the question about age. Yeah, I think 18 and over is the only restriction there would be, but I'll check to make sure. And if I do see that there is any other um, restrictions that we should be aware of, I'll let you know. But most boards and commissions do have very different requirements for being on them. A lot of them do not, like a lot of boards and commissions have community seats, community member seats. That is not true for all of them. And so for some of them, you may find that you need to have a certain background, you need to have a certain educational background or a career background in order to engage with them. But that is something that we will cover in the fellowship. Drew, I see that you said that you will be applying. Very excited to see your application and thank you. Are there specific boards and commissions that Conservation Colorado would like to target in this fellowship? We have been talking more about this in some recent meetings. Historically, we have not targeted specific ones. However, we, as an environmental organization, do highly encourage folks to explore boards and commissions that are focused on the environment, but we do not restrict people's opportunities to explore what makes sense for them. And so we have had previous fellows who have applied to be on the Immigrant and Refugee Board here in Aurora. That is wonderful, and we wish all of our fellows the best, and we're hoping that they do bring an environmental lens to any of the work that they do, but there are no limitations to which ones we want folks to go into.
I have a question,
Yeah.
too. It isn't particularly about this, but I was at the Youth Climate Summit, and I
Yeah.
remember meeting you, and I have, like, your posters that you gave me for the Next Generation Climate Leaders and the Climate Leader Academy, and I have the information on that, but is there any other way to find out, like, when you would meet for that if, like, I did apply, or, like, just, like, how long we would meet and if it'd be, like, on Zoom or in person or, like, anything like that?
And I think, we should talk,
Okay.
because, yeah, we usually, especially for the next generation climate leaders, we do like to work with a teacher that is working at the school that you may be attending, or with
Mhm.
another adult who can be a support, in the program, just
Okay.
because we're not teachers at your school, and so let's talk and we can figure out something. We have actually, I want to say that we've never done the next generation climate leaders virtually, but we would be really interested in figuring that out, if that's what would work best for you and maybe a group of your colleagues who is also interested in doing something similar. So
Okay.
let's
I
chat.
can do in person too, I just wasn't sure if it was specifically in person or
Okay.
on Zoom.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Awesome. Are there any other questions? Oh, thanks for Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, feel free, everyone can feel free to follow up after this conversation if you don't have any questions that you want to share right now. Feel free to send me an email. You can also call or text me or set up a meeting with me. So my Calendly, as I mentioned before, is available for any follow-up conversations, as well as you can just email me if that's easiest. But I am more than happy and really excited to continue this conversation afterwards. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I'll go ahead and let me add um, the links in the chat. And I'll also be following up after this session. So once we have the recording finalized, I will email it to everyone on this list who signed up to attend the webinar. And I will also send any additional links. So you'll have a link to the presentation, so you can review that. You'll have a link to the applications as well. Let me see if I can very quickly pull that up and send that in the chat. Um,
Also, sorry, I have one more question.
okay, go ahead.
On the posters you gave me, I already do have your email, but it also has the phone number, so are either of those okay ways of, like, contacting you?
Yes, yes. Feel free
Okay.
to contact me in either of those. That's totally fine.
Okay, perfect, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Are there any other questions while I am fumbling around with trying to find these links? I should have had them ready before, and then I didn't. So that's on me. I apologize. All right, there is the fellow application that I just dropped in the chat. And here's the mentor form. So you should all have access to those as well as the slides from today. But as I mentioned, I will email those by tomorrow, to everyone who signed up. And great. So seeing that there seems to be no more questions, I am going to stop the recording